This episode is sponsored by Bigger City. Thank you so much for supporting us and helping our show to grow.
Hello and welcome to the Big Fat Gay Podcast, where we talk about the things that are weighing on our minds. I'm Dan Oliverio, author, public speaker, and chubby chaser, and today I'm a caffeinated caffeine
Oh,
boy.
God. Oh, God.
I've had way too much coffee.
Oh my God. We have hit the exact amount of caffeine it takes to turn Dan into a morning DJ.
Yes, you have.
Apparently, WB
Someone give this man a slide
cartoon
whistle.
version of a morning DJ.
Hi,
Jesus Christ.
I'm Trevor Keyson. I'm a super chub, and I don't know. I've had adequate caffeine.
No,
Not as much as Dan, apparently. So yeah,
vibrating.
I don't know. I think it's just going to phase through the couch and down to the center of the earth. I have the power.
Hello. I'm Michael Willer, chubby chaser, and I'm your smooth jazz DJ for the morning. That's it.
I've got no DJ vibes today. I don't have it. Hey, my name's Don. I'm a big chubby guy living here in sunny Hollywood. And today I'm obsessing on the fact that I have realized that somewhere along the way, Dan has passed a milestone and we didn't acknowledge it.
What happened?
When we started doing this episode, Dan had the most anxiety out of all of us of hitting the right entrance point for the intro.
Oh, you mean the show, the whole...
The whole show intro.
You mean back to episode 1?
Yeah, back to episode 1.
Got it.
You were so insistent that someone had to signal you.
I just
when
wanted
it
a
was time
cue.
to start.
Yeah.
You don't need it anymore, Dan. You don't need that crutch. You have grown past it. You have grown as a presenter.
Do I talk now?
So proud of you, Dan.
Dan, we're trying to do a podcast here.
Okay, you tell me when to talk.
I feel moments of personal growth should be acknowledged.
That's very nice. Thank you to our Patreon patrons. You guys are excellent and awesome. We say it every episode because we mean it every episode.
And I don't know. Thank you to people who have been buying bearskin underwear with our promo code Big Fat Gay Pod.
Yeah.
Because we're seeing some stuff from this. It's exciting.
Kickback from that.
If we're seeing stuff, that means a lot of our listeners' significant others are seeing some stuff too. And that brings joy to everyone.
Yeah.
Well, and if you don't want necessarily underwear, they Bearskin just launched their new. They have some shorts. They have swimsuits. The shorts I'm actually curious about because they're
getting summery.
Stretch. They got some fun pockets, some little plaid pocket. If
you want to lift up your skirt, and reveal.
And they have
behind the
swimsuits.
scenes
Don't
reference.
forget, swimsuit season is coming.
It is coming, whether you like it or not.
That's right.
I'm thinking of the dress thing where like someone compliments a woman's dress and she's like, and it has pockets, and you can have some cute bearskin, little khaki shorts. And someone can compliment them. And you can say, thanks, they have pockets, and show the little plaid.
Like little bright red plaid pocket linings.
Yeah.
I do like it when the linings are like bright colors that stand out from the shorts themselves. I like that.
So Michael and I are considering buying a Big Fig mattress because I get back pain sleeping on our mattress and it's getting worse and worse. And
Do you?
It's probably time. And
How is Michael with it?
he's fine with it. In fact, he prefers a soft mattress, which I think is insane.
Yeah.
So I'm a little nervous because Big Fig's pretty firm, right? Like it's not hard, but it's firm.
See, what I found is that oh God. I'm going to about to talk about our sponsor in terms that this is all genuinely from me. This is not because they're a sponsor.
The check's in the mail, Don.
I get a level of support from the Big Fig mattress that I've never gotten from anything else, in that it feels like it's strong enough to keep my spine in a really kind of healthy position, but there's enough padding on there where it doesn't feel hard.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love my Big Fig.
I will also say I tend to like a softer mattress, and I was worried about that with Big Fig because it is pretty darn firm. But it's so wonderful to sleep on.
Whatever they put on top of that support layer is like heaven sent.
I'm sorry, Don. Can we get clean? I love my Big Fig. Just so
I love my Big Fig mattress. I've never ever had better sleep or sex since it came into my life.
So check those out. Thank you to Bigger City for sponsoring us. And we're starting this episode out with a mailbag. Who'd have thought?
I wouldn't have. So we had some reaction from our episode on the Golden Girls.
Wait, that chaotic thing?
And so I'll read some of the highlights. So the letter goes, "Hi, boys. So here's my thoughts on the Golden Girls season 3, episode 14. I think about this show, and I also think about Maude and All in the Family, and how those shows held up a mirror to the biases of the average person of the period in that period of time. I think the Golden Girls did the same thing. What I think doesn't work for them is that the average viewer isn't seeing it that way. They're seeing it as a funny show. Haha, Sophia is a laugh riot. Fat people are funny. But what doesn't translate is the fact that Sophia represents the older generation at that time and the mentality of the average audience. Each character is a reflection on society and how they treat people, whether with malice or ignorance. Rebecca is the character whose shoes the writers want you to wear, and she would be the fat daughter that we talked about. So isn't it typical as a fat person to have to suffer slings from strangers and friends alike? I just don't think a lot of people get it, which is probably the fault of the writers. I don't know, my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the time, I mean, I said this last episode, I think the point of that episode was not so much about fat, but about self-esteem and settling.
Mm-hmm.
The point about fat, no, they were not crusading for fat rights at that point. And so that's why I think it doesn't register with the audience that like, wait a minute, maybe those fat jokes aren't funny.
Yeah, I stand by what I said. They needed to make their A-plot funny, and so they did it with fat jokes.
Yeah, no, I thought that was a great observation.
They make a really interesting point, though. Like, one of the things we've talked about in the past, and we talked about like the movie The Ritz or any of the other older comedy venues that we've talked about, is comedy is of a time, right? And it's partially of that time because it doesn't just represent the common opinions of the period it came out in. It represents the opinions of people 20 years prior to it, you know, and all that sort of stuff. And so sometimes, like watching Sophia say some of these one-liners is incredibly uncomfortable to people now.
Yeah.
But back then, I have no trouble picturing my grandparents saying some of those lines.
Oh, God, yeah.
Like not even in the slightest. So
I also wanted to respond to another letter we got, which was kind of like, why are you talking about the Golden Girls? And then they did a deep dive because they're a wonderful fan of ours. Like, you know, if the Big Fat Gay podcast is talking about the Golden Girls, maybe I should look up the Golden Girls.
Yeah.
And so I did want to do a little background. Like, why would we be talking about an old TV show with a bunch of old women on it?
Call this an amendment.
Yeah.
We need to issue a retraction.
And so I just wanted to do a brief, I guess, recap of not so much just the Golden Girls, but like eras of television. And you know, like Don, you were saying that comedy is of a time, and obviously these shows are of a time. The Golden Girls was not only just an amazingly successful show in its era, which was the late 80s, early 90s, but it was also a breakthrough television because you had never seen older women featured as main characters without husbands. That was huge. And one of the phenomena that you have in television in the late 80s was they were a response to what else was going on in the country in the 80s. That was the era of Reagan. That was the era of so much other stuff.
And there was a very interesting phenomenon in 80s, I think maybe not so much 70s, but 80s and 90s sitcoms where the mother character in a family dynamic was always gone for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Very frequently gone. These female like role models were just not present.
Well, apparently they were all in the Golden Girls.
They were all in the Golden Girls. So like even in that way, this show was unique.
Right. And what I wanted to broaden it out into is things like the Golden Girls, a little bit later, Murphy Brown.
Designing Women.
Designing Women, thank you. Designing Women, they're all talking about social issues of the day, which hadn't been like most sitcoms of the 80s weren't doing that. They were talking about, you know, they were focused on other things. So it was really breakthrough television. And that's why when they do an episode about sexual abuse, when they do an episode about elder care, when they do an episode about it was something that was rippling through the cultural zeitgeist and needed to be addressed. And then we talked about what this episode addressed last episode.
Yeah. The listener who is, I think if it's possible for our show to have a super fan, then he is definitely one.
Yes.
So thank you. Made a good point that there was a lot of hard to understand crosstalk. That happens a lot of times when we do online recordings because there's just lag that we deal with. It's not as evident when there's two people talking, but when it's four, you know, it just happens sometimes.
Well, and it gets heated. You know?
And if we're all trying to kind of jump in and make a point. So that we'll try and be better about that. We're all in person today, so that shouldn't be a problem. Somebody can jump in.
Actually, it will be a problem. No, I think also I definitely want to do one of these episodes again, and I think we'll try to do it in person because when we are, comedy is of an era, and I think especially right now we are in a time when public consciousness is evolving so fast that even something that comes out like a year ago can be extremely dated. So when you go back 20 years, and even I was thinking 20 years the 80s, but no.
Nope.
That 30, going back 20 years, I think we'll be able to drop the diva. Oh my God. Oh, time. Oh.
My bones. All right.
I want to point one last thing out about the Golden Girls episode that I think is interesting. Is that it was one of the historical contexts that's such a huge deal on this one is that this came out in 1988. And that is basically a period where one thing I was going through in my life was my grandmother was divorcing my grandfather.
Oh, wow.
During this time period. And that was a very common experience for people in this time period because no-fault divorce was finally becoming a thing in America during the 80s. During the late 60s, you had no-fault. And it was the first time you actually had women that were able to get credit cards on their own.
The Women in Credit Act was 1974.
But the fallout of that is still 6 to 10 years after that. Yeah. That's when you start seeing all this stuff. So you start seeing in the Golden Girls all of this independence and women's opinions being able to be stated outright for the first time on mass media like this, where they aren't under the shield of men. Anyway, sorry. The history of Golden Girls and Maude and all this stuff is fascinating to me. So moving on.
Okay. Well, on to the rest of the episode.
We're having a cigarette backstage. We're not dancing this time.
Yeah.
And we come out and slide across the stage with the floor. Top it.
Drop our cigarettes at the edge of the stage curtain.
And the curtains go up.
It's go up in flames.
It's a fire.
It's part of the show, everybody.
Yeah. We are talking about, we're going back to Taylor Swift, kind of.
Kind of.
I think
Travis
this is a
Kelce.
worthy visit.
Is it Kelce? It must be Kelce.
It must be Kelce.
Kelce, the professional American football player.
Mr.
Travis
Taylor
Kelce.
Swift.
Yeah. Apparently,
I'm glad you're providing this context for me because I do not follow sports and
I don't either.
Oh, it's Taylor Swift's boyfriend. You mean that?
Yeah, dating Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Apparently has a dad bod.
So all these photojournalists, so to speak, are like snapping pictures of them in Bermuda,
The New York Post. Oh yeah, they're on vacation. It's
They're on vacation.
Taylor on vacation.
Bahamas,
He's walking out of the pool, out of the ocean, in a swimsuit.
To give context, Travis Kelce is the man who won the Super Bowl last month.
Professional American.
I think he had
player.
help
2 months ago. He got MVP. He got all the announcements afterwards. This is a professional athlete at the pinnacle of his profession 2 months after performing the most high stress, difficult part of that job he'll ever do. And now they're branding him as somebody with a dad bod.
There's a whole bunch of stuff in that because, I mean, are you kidding me? He has a dad bod. He just isn't like abs. He just isn't abs head to toe. So there's that. Is he a dad bod? And then second, whether he is or not, who cares? Because what's wrong with a dad bod? So there's 2 prongs here.
Specifically that the origin of the phrase dad bod is that there was nothing wrong with it. It was a way to say dad bods are hot in a way that was good for men, but not good for women.
Yeah, it was pointing out the discrepancy that if a woman looked like she had a mother bod, that was awful, but a dad bod was kind of cool and relaxed.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a whole thing of built like a Pixar mom. Have you seen that? The whole meme of that in Pixar movies, there is the very
Mrs.
Incredible.
Yeah.
But it's a whole meme of I feel kind of unobtainable, I guess pear shape. I don't know. It's Pixar
hourglass.
shape.
No, hourglass.
It's an hourglass.
No, you were allowed to have big hips as long as you had the tiniest of waists.
Yeah.
And big.
And juicy booty.
The hourglass. The exaggerated. This sort of 40s hourglass as opposed to 20-year-old hourglass.
Yeah. I just feel I don't know. This article is from Jezebel, and it is the perfect encapsulation of the feelings around this.
It's a great takedown by Kylie Chung.
Very well written.
It's equal parts snarky and well researched, which I appreciate because it's entertaining and also informative.
I have to say, at some parts, it's so snarky, I can't follow the syntax.
So the first paragraph. Let me
What
read this
the
because
hell?
it's so interesting.
Can you parse it? I dare you to read that.
I couldn't, but I liked it.
I dare you to read this out loud and parse it.
This has truly been a banner week for the internet. From the respective discourses surrounding a cut being a publication, a cut essay by a young woman besotted with otherworldly wisdom of, checks notes, a 30-year-old man, to the regurgitated talking points about ableism and tipping service workers, to the reason I've brought you here today.
Oh my
heated
God.
debate whether Kansas City Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce has a dad bod based on very normal, very cute pap snaps of him and girlfriend Taylor Swift on the vacation in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
That is one sentence.
That is one sentence. And
I don't
Where's
blame,
your editor?
I don't
damn it?
blame
Where's
the
your
writer.
editor?
I blame the editor.
Where's the editor? God damn it. Do
I
your
love
job.
it, though. I love it. It's chaotic.
It's nonsensical.
But that is the feelings around
exactly, 'cause
this
it matches.
discourse. What is the musical with like the kind of salesman doing the like the purity?
I'll tell you. How to succeed in business without really trying.
I kind of imagine it like that, kind of like breathless, just like speaking.
Yeah.
I feel like that's something that you could do. That like.
Oh, well, usually it's what I think of as the Rosalind Russell, like that mid-Atlantic sound of like, well, let me tell you what the thing that's wrong with that. Because whenever I go to the store and I see all these people and they're just dressed up to the nines, but of course not this one who's just after the sixes and sevens.
If they're saying Kelce has a dad bod, I say, no, Kelce has won the Super Bowl in February. He does not have a body composition of a middle-aged suburban father of three who falls asleep in a lazy boy chair reclining in his dining room 2 minutes into watching a Pixar movie with the kids.
This is how we're talking about cousin's body means that the goalposts of what constitutes dad bod are continuing to shift. Anything that isn't a build of an MMA fighter is now somehow a dad bod.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It's very,
enough of that bit.
It's very Katharine Hepburn.
The point of it is, if this is a dad bod, then how do the rest of us get to feel about our bodies, right?
The other thing, yes, absolutely, Don.
Yeah.
And the thing that gets me is, this isn't a dad bod. It's just, and then she lays out this case, which is obviously someone who's never been to one of these, to this gym where these people are, the people who have 8-pack abs and it's not the steroids. It's the eating disorder. You don't get abs from steroids. You get it from an eating disorder.
My favorite point, I think the most salient point that this article makes, that the writer makes, is because all of these observations are being made by social media influencers, people online who are looking at these photos and making these observations.
This.
And they ask, do chronically online social media users even know what human bodies look like?
Exactly right. Exactly right.
It's so detached from reality that you have to ask the question.
Well, and the thing that I start to wonder is they know that these people exist. They know that my body type exists, right? But in order to make that statement, they have to deny my humanity to make it happen.
And to be fair, to contradict what I just say, yes, there are people who come by abs naturally. They're called thin people.
Yeah.
But it's not, there's an old saying in the gym, which is that, you don't get abs in the gym, you get abs at the kitchen table. It's about eating or not eating, as the case
But
may
to call that an average,
or
to be kind,
or to call it something like that's what the body is supposed to look like, and therefore everything else is to be disparaged, or to even say that that's attainable for certain people. I mean, you might as well say that the perfect body is 6'1", and if you're not 6'1", well, I'm sorry, you're failing.
I mean, maybe just in this Ozempic era, Travis Kelce's bod is the dad bod of that kind of buccal fat removal.
Please don't.
Thin, beautiful, eating cigarettes for breakfast.
I hate this. I hate all of it.
Well, if you hate that,
Just wait till our next
This is a
article.
very good segue, Trevor.
yeah,
Take it away. Daily Beast
Daily Beast
by Katie Bricklet.
talking
Brickele.
about GOP candidate Eric Hovde.
you know what? This guy doesn't even deserve to be looked up to be given a correct pronunciation.
Well,
GOP
no, in Wisconsin, if you live in Wisconsin, you are in danger of having him as a senator.
Yeah.
So that his election is going on right now, and he's running against Tammy Baldwin.
Yes.
Is he testing well? Is he polling well?
I like everything in the country. It's neck and neck.
God damn it.
I know.
And so this is the Daily Beast kind of going into his history of wanting to raise healthcare prices for people with obesity.
To be fair, he'd like to get rid of healthcare in general. He's a fierce detractor of Obamacare, and he would like healthcare to go away entirely. He wanted to get away. He wanted to do away with COBRA, which would let kids stay on their parents' insurance plan until 26. He wants to get rid of that.
But even in the context of this article, what he is basically saying is that fat people deserve to pay more for healthcare and to receive less healthcare.
Well, based on the principle that that fat people choose to be fat.
Yeah.
Well, and to be just so that we're getting it right, I think this is something that was dug up that he said long ago.
Yes.
That he probably still stands by, but
Republicans never change their position unless it actually comes.
One of his primary platform topics is talking about healthcare. So this was kind of diving into his past statements about healthcare.
He's against healthcare unless you pay for it.
Yeah, and if you are,
or if you get it because of your job, like he does.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
no, because that's paying for it.
Yeah. He's earned it. You have to earn your health. Yeah.
This is where Don's favorite new phrase came up, which I think I had never had any of us seen. What is it?
Obesogenic.
Obesogenic environment.
Obesogenic environment, an environment that spawns obesity.
I mean, I don't know.
Thank you for that use of spawn.
Going by just kind of people's opinions about why people are fat, and having grown up in the Midwest and spent a lot of time in Wisconsin, it's just like there's so much cheese. So like if you think fat people get fat from eating a lot, just like cheese curds.
I've had a friend come back
sausage.
to Wisconsin and give me cheese curds, and it made me understand cheese in whole new ways.
Yeah. They have a whole castle made of cheese in Wisconsin. The Mars Cheese Castle.
Why are we not there?
It's because you can't bounce in it.
Oh,
it's a beautiful
through
place.
that castle.
And it's, I don't know. I just am like, I know that people hate fat people and that a lot of politicians hate fat people, but it's just such a, I don't know, nasty flavor of it. And
this is like the villain in a movie where the protagonist is fat and trying to just live his life. And this guy's sneaking around the house going like, how dare you be fat for free? We must charge you more money to be fat so that the rest of us will have food. Like,
as punishment.
Exactly. So the assumption that everyone's operating on in this article, including the writer of the article, is, obesity is a disease.
Mm.
And
that it has causes like eating sugar.
Right. Or in the case of the guy, he's literally says like drinking too many sodas.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is like, okay, if that's how you see it, and you want to raise healthcare costs for obese people because of that, how is that any different from raising the healthcare costs of somebody who gets cancer?
Yeah.
Oh, because it's about blame.
In his view.
Yeah, because it's about blame.
Right.
It's about
blame.
But
the logic doesn't track. Like the way that he's talking about it is though, okay, it's a disease and so you should charge people more, but not for those other diseases.
Well, sadly, the American conservative mindset does not really depend on any kind of internal logic.
I still think it's worth pointing out though.
Well, here's my counter argument for the conservative base. You see, the reason we need obese people is that it would decimate the cheese-making economy of Wisconsin if they were to lose weight and stop eating cheese. So really, you need these fat people to keep eating cheese and support the economy.
Yeah.
If you want people in business, they got to be making and eating cheese.
It's an eating disorder.
It's a cheese disorder.
I understand the logic of wanting fat people to pay more for healthcare, but even like just that, like, well, it costs more. But even in that case, like just with how how insurance functions now for fat people, you still end up, these people are already paying more because you have, like, if they have more health problems, you still have to pay because insurance doesn't really cover a lot. Like
right.
Insurance, does help with the cost of healthcare, but not a lot.
Well,
yeah.
And these are the same people who are against lowering the price of insulin because the high prices needed punishment to get people to lose weight.
Right. So the insurance company isn't paying that. You are.
Yeah, and rightly so.
Right. So you are actually supporting the economy of
I know healthcare's a joke.
When you realize that conservative healthcare is by its nature vindictive.
Yes.
Right. It wants you to be punished for anything in your life that could possibly be blamed on you.
Well, unless, remember, it's always other people's fault, never one's own.
Well, that's only when it's you.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying
Yeah.
if that for this guy, in his world, he earned his health care and he earned his good health. But other people need to be punished for their poor choices.
Yeah.
And it's a slam dunk for him. Who's going to give him flack for shitting on obese people?
Yeah.
He can't lose.
Yeah. Because even obese people will help him.
Well, I mean, that's okay. No, never mind. I'm about to go into political screed, which we don't need here. Nope. Moving on.
Okay. Let's do the thing.
Yeah, we're gonna free you. Join hands. You feel it?
Fat Watch 2024.
Do you hear it? We're soaring. We're soaring out of Wisconsin.
I kind of want to sneak the Netflix logo sound into the Fat Watch. I feel like it would just fit perfect.
That's when it's like this when Superman takes off. There's that
yeah. Yes. That's the eagle.
Yeah.
we're flying, we're soaring.
Or it's the thud on the sidewalk.
And
Exploding out of the corduroys.
relevant to everything we just talked about. We're talking about why fat people are discriminated against.
Yeah. So I'm not familiar with this publication, but marketplace.org has a newsletter called This is Uncomfortable. And the headline of this particular one is This is Why Weight Discrimination is Legal in Most of the U.S. by Hannah Harris Green, Marika Proctor, and Tony Wagner. And if I understand correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, I've read the intro to this, which is essentially setting up how they do lots of research for their I guess the episode that there's a podcast episode. And all of the excess interviews and people that they talk to, they want to include somehow. And so they put it in print kind of on the same page, right? Is that a fair assessment?
That's more than I know.
Okay. I think so.
So you have interviews with, for instance, the first one is Tigress Osborne.
Yes.
Which is, it is always fun because Tigress is so fucking well-spoken about all of this stuff. She just nails it every time. Yeah. And has all of these really incisive explanations. So it's just talking about stuff what does size discrimination in the workplace look like? What is it?
Yeah, and I love that she rewinds it all the way back to, no, it's not just at the interview. It's that you had to buy clothes for for that interview. And could you find business attire in your size? And if you could, how far did you have to go?
Yeah.
And if you could find it, and how far did you have to go? How much did you have to pay for it?
Right.
In college, I had a waiter's job where we had to wear a uniform.
There you go.
And they sold you the clothes you had to wear at work.
Yeah.
And the shirt only went up to a 2X.
Most
that was it.
Most any fast food place that will apply.
Yep.
I worked at McDonald's for a short period and had to buy the shirt and the pants and everything. Also, if you get lucky enough as a fat person to have an interview with somebody who isn't anti-fat, you still have to walk in dressed appropriately. That's the point. Is even if you have other things going in your favor, you're still having to hit all of these speed bumps along the way, some of which are insurmountable.
Right. And Tigress makes the point that it's not so much individual people gunning for fat people. It's the whole system.
That was my favorite point.
The whole system is geared from how you dress to how you got there to how, what are you doing on the job? What is the chair you're sitting in on the job? Everything is not geared for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great article. There's
It's a
also,
really good article,
I guess, not really.
It's
Another
still
bit
part of
from
it with
Virgie Tovar.
Yeah, Virgie Tovar. Defend your splurge, which I just kind of love this, talking about indulging in super fancy hot chocolate, a $35 concoction, which includes whipped cream, marshmallows, Kit Kats, M&Ms, and anything else you can think of that you trade for your garbage pail kids.
It looks like there's a
third
butter
grade.
cookie. She has a picture of her drinking the hot chocolate. It looks amazing.
Yeah, not my thing.
No,
But just that,
Not my thing. That's like drinking a Halloween bucket.
yes.
Oh, that sounds
It
amazing.
sounds amazing.
I'm just going to go back home and have a hot mug of Snickers.
Just put it in a bucket. Just put it in a bucket.
Look, the funnel's too narrow, Dan. It's too narrow.
but how kind of breaking down the finances of it, but also just the personal splurge of enjoying something as a fat person that you and allowing yourself to indulge and trying to heal from that judgment, the whole judgy thing of oh, you're fat, you shouldn't have that.
Yeah. Not just giving yourself permission, but really getting that you don't need permission to go, enjoy this hot chocolate or anything that looks delicious and you want to try. Yeah, it's a great little, I guess, positive, good vibes anecdote to end on.
Yes.
Anyway, so excellent. This is a very good article. Very good things.
Yay.
So main topic today, this has come up a few times in general discussion. We wanted to really tackle what it's like in the chub chaser world to live in a body that you are not attracted to, and to date somebody who is not attracted to their body, and what comes up and all of those things and what it feels like.
Yeah. And I would say that I would get this a lot. You see it sometimes online in personal ads, like a chub saying they're looking for a chaser. And what they mean is they're not looking for someone who is also fat like they are.
Yeah.
And there's a certain degree of apology sometimes because they do get hate mail from like other fat people like, whoa, you won't date one of your own. And they're like, I'm sorry, I'm not attracted to my own. And what I frequently say is, there's lots of people who would not date themselves. And what I often point out to, because something that I would get hit with a lot when I would go out on the road and talk about being a chubby chaser. And they're like, well, if you like fat so much, how come you're not fat? And I would say, oh, well, maybe some straight men. And I think that there are a lot of straight men who really like women, and very few of them want to be women. And that it's just because you're attracted to something doesn't mean you want to embody it. Sometimes it does, but I think for the majority, actually, no.
Yeah.
You're just attracted to it. And so that it's not some sort of horrible self-hatred if you are a chub and you want to date someone who's not a chub, just as there shouldn't be a stigma about someone who is not a chub and wants to date a chub.
Have you guys had any notices or messages about stuff like that?
I've never been told off for it. In my personal ads, I have always stated that I tend to be more attracted to thin, to mainstream bodies. Yeah. I've never been told off for it. I have also noticed it's never stopped chubbier guys from approaching me.
Yep.
I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I would also remember for this very reason, there's a switch, there's a badge you can wear on Bigger City called Chub for Chub. If you are fat and you want to date a fat person, you can check Chub for Chub. I will tell you though, that on Bigger City, you can only check one of those boxes. You can't multi-identify like you can on some sites. And if you do check Chub for Chub, a lot of chasers like me will stay away because we respect your choice.
Right. Yeah.
But the way to correct that is you just check you're a chub and you can say, and you're open to dating fat guys in your text.
Make it clear in the profile.
Yeah.
So at Bigger Vegas a couple of years ago, they have like little tags that you can put on your badge.
Yeah.
And so Michael and I, having never been before, went up to the table and we're like, oh, looking for little tags to put on. And he was like, oh, I love this one. And he held it up to me and he said, Chubby Chub. Oh. It said Chub for Chub. And I was like, I don't think that means what you want it to mean.
Oh boy.
You can wear it if you want, but
yeah, you're going to find some choices that are very limited.
yeah.
But I've also never experienced any other situation where people tell people that they are expected to be attracted to people that look like them. Like,
It happens
so you're
lot.
a black.
No, I think it happens in almost any marginalized group.
Really?
That you should be dating. You should be dating your own people.
Yeah. No, I've definitely heard that before. And I think there's also, in the case with fat people in particular, you get a lot of examples in media. Like we briefly talked about Mike and Molly as potentially one of those like TV episode review things. And the idea that like it's only acceptable for the fat person to be with the fat person. Although you also get weird deviations from that with like, what's the guy's name? The like kind of football player type guy.
King of Queens?
Yeah. What's
That's just
Kevin
honeymooners.
James.
Kevin
James.
Yeah,
Kevin
it's
James.
like so you get other variations on it, but I feel like it's also like that's not ever a good relationship.
Well, but there's also the inherent toxic masculinity, misogyny of you can be a schmo and it is completely reasonable to the general public that you're dating a pretty wife. You're dating a pretty woman or you have a pretty wife. Whereas if the man is good looking and he's dating a not conventionally attractive woman, all of a sudden people are up in arms.
Yeah.
All of a sudden people are like,
I think it's because
the double
people
standard.
tend to assume that there's one person in every relationship who has the power. right?
Very
Right.
much so.
Yeah, that's a thing.
And whoever doesn't have the power must conform to the tastes of the person who has the power.
Well, and this is something I talk a lot about in my seminars, is that a chub chaser relationship, like a lot of relationships, like heterosexual relationships, is an asymmetrical relationship. That if you're fat in society, there is a certain stigma attached to that. And if you're not fat, you have at least privilege. And if you're good looking and thin, you have a lot of privilege. And so there is that asymmetricality of the relationship. This also exists in a lot of heterosexual couples, in that, women, just generally speaking, have less power in a patriarchy than the men do. And you see that all over the place, whether it's wages or whatever. So there is an inherent asymmetricality. So the question is the degree of asymmetricality and how do you deal with it?
Yeah. So in that situation, the physical appearance of the less empowered partner is perceived as one of the items of value that they bring to that relationship, in a way that the appearance of the person with power is not perceived as being a factor.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's happened to me. I remember, I got slimed by this, not quite friend, but more than acquaintance, colleague, let's say. And he met my boyfriend at the time, who of course was fat. And I think this colleague was also into me. So I think he felt slighted that like, oh, you're into that, but not me. And it was the most icky comment. He looked at me like, wow, sometimes we forget that good looking people can have self-esteem issues too.
Oh my God.
What the fuck?
Wow.
Oh yeah. And
That'll kill any.
and
Jesus.
A real person said that out loud to you.
Out loud. That was not some online troll. That was face to face.
Fuck.
What was this? When was this? What year?
Oh, I don't know. I was in Los Angeles. I mean, it wasn't
1894.
It was 1894.
No, but
and the
was
gold
this like-
rush
I
had
don't
just been found.
Was this before 2007? It just feels. This feels like
remember.
I don't know.
Anyway, my point is, my retort, because somebody's going to ask me, what did you say? I did pick up on it, because you could have gone like, what are you talking about? What?
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of people, I think he intended it to go over my head, and it didn't. And I said like, oh, I'm not dating him because I have self-esteem issues. I'm dating him because he's hot. And that shut him the fuck up.
I'm just like, how would that go over your head? Like,
How
that's
did
just
you
like
stay calm for that? I would have lost my fucking
Because
mind.
it was so general. It was not you. It's like we forget sometimes that these sorts of people have.
But that
these
makes it
sorts
worse.
of-
It's so
Yeah.
passive aggressive.
Absolutely, absolutely.
God.
There's a certain type of
punch
person
him
who
in his
thinks that
face.
they're so sly that their comments will just go above everyone's
Yeah,
head.
but again, but see, rather than, and this is the whole thing that we talk about, whether you're going to blow up at them, whether you're going to ignore it. I always choose the outreach method just because I can, right? I'm not upset and I have to deal with that. So what I'll do is I'll use it as an outreach opportunity, which is to say like, no, it's not a self-esteem problem. I think he's hot. Deal with it. Like, and it puts it back on them to like, okay, what are you going to say to that?
I don't know, go into my experience with like chub for chub stuff. Cause I don't know, I've done some chub for chub, and especially like when I was in college and stuff. And
then moose boost.
Those experimental phase when you're chub for chub.
Well, no, but just like, and I was smaller, and like my most recent kind of like chub for chub thing, it just like the mechanics of it were really the issue, because it was with someone, my size, and it was like, we couldn't, like, he was really hot and we were having a good time and like making out and stuff, but it was like the mechanics of really trying to make that work were just like, we could not get into like good positions. And it was like, my back. And then we'd be like, okay, let's try this. And then he'd be like,
Someone's back is being sacrificed in this.
But
and it was, I don't know, it was fun. And then it was like, well, like, let's just kind of make out. Like, it's,
yeah, but isn't it chub for chub will tell you, nature finds a way.
I know. I mean, I don't know. I think with just how we were both built and our, both having bad backs, it was a challenge.
Yeah.
And I would say that's kind of like the biggest obstacle, and also kind of like liking physical contrast.
Look, love
that's
is
the thing.
work.
Well, and that you like physical contrast.
So we've talked a little bit about the perceptions of it. We've talked about the pressures to acknowledge mixed size relationships. But what we're talking about here today is, what is it like to live in a body that you are not automatically attracted to?
Well, and there's a very big difference between chubs and chasers on that.
Yeah.
Which is, if you're a fat guy, and you're not attracted to other fat guys, and you're living in a stigmatized body. Whereas a chaser with muscle, I wouldn't date me, but I'm not living in a stigmatized body.
Yeah.
And that is a massive difference. Massive.
And so when I kind of dissect my own attractions, I can't help but be aware that like the people that I'm attracted to tend to be the most physically opposite me that I can find. And while I talk to a chaser and they're talking about sort of this active awareness of, the body size difference is a hot thing to me. That never crosses my mind. I never think about that. That is not a factor in my thinking. I am taking pleasure in their body because of that difference, but the difference doesn't give me pleasure. Does that make sense?
I'm kind of the same way. Like I've heard people talk about like focusing on the difference in sizes. And I've never caught myself doing that. I've always been very focused, just focused on the other person. Like I haven't really imagined, I guess, the two of us as a single image. Like that part of it hasn't occurred to me.
I think Trevor, I know I'm different. I'm definitely like the contrast is hot to me. I think Trevor for you too.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say it's the primary thing, but like it's fun.
It's fun, yeah.
Especially because I'm short and it is very rare for me to like find someone shorter than me because it's just like it's statistics, people.
Yeah,
it's,
just
a shorter chaser is like there's just not a lot, and I know that there's gonna be some that'll say like, wait, no, but what about me? I'm down here.
No. Go ahead.
Don't give them that voice. Show respect to our short king listeners.
They are short kings because I never I don't know. Because there are like, the tall guy, like just tall civilians who are like, I like a short guy because I can like throw him around. And it's fun to like be able to like, I get this now. It's neat.
It's neat.
Well, I used to feel a lot of, I shouldn't say questions, but comments. Like I would get a lot of comments when I was in bed with a guy like, oh, I like that you're so muscular and beefy. Like, I don't feel like I'm going to break you. And I'm like, you're not going to break most men. It's really hard to break a guy. Trust me. I don't care if they're 5'2". It's really hard to break.
I mean,
Trevor, come on.
Made a face.
You're on my side with this one, right? Come on. You may think you're durable, Dan, but we can break you.
I have damaged people. I've damaged people in this room.
Yeah, but they love it.
Well, and again, I feel like it's important to, if we're going back to that particular we were in a position that is not, it's like, that is not a thing that you would normally
you would have damaged anybody in that.
I'm picturing a whole Catherine.
That's why I'm saying
Being the only person in the room who doesn't know what you guys are talking about, I'm picturing a Catherine the Great situation. That's all I can say.
Oh,
she was killed. The lie of history is that she was killed by her groomsmen lowering a horse onto her for her pleasure.
Yeah, no. But my point is, while my body type offers a lot of advantages for a lot of chubs, I would always stick up for the small, skinny guys who, as one chub told me, he said, oh my God, they're like chub floss. They can get into all these nooks and crannies that as a big guy, I can't. Like I'm way too bulky to do that. But they can like bend themselves around and get into these little positions. And a lot of chubs just adore it.
I have had that very strange experience where I was with a much smaller guy who was very much into that size difference thing. He was also just some things that I didn't know about. He didn't discuss beforehand, but like we were in bed together and I forget why, but I lifted myself up for a second off the mattress and holy shit, it was like Speedy Gonzalez.
Yeah.
Slid right under me.
Yeah. See, I can't get in that space and I can't move that fast.
Yeah. So so take advantage of these size differences. But so back to our current discussion, it's always interesting to me. Like, so because I'm not attracted to my own body, it took me years to come to the belief, not the understanding, but the belief that there were other people who were attracted to my body.
Right.
Right. With that belief still comes with the understanding that not everyone is attracted to my body. So when I'm with a chaser for the first time, one of the things that I'm looking for is some sort of reassurance, right? I'm looking to see your attraction in that moment together. And a lot of chasers, I think, have been conditioned to withhold that.
Yes. I will, two things to that point. Absolutely right. And number one, by the way, chasers want that too.
Yeah.
I don't care how many times your mother tells you you're good looking. You still, when you get in bed with a guy, you want some acknowledgement that they are into your body. It doesn't have to be worship, but you want some acknowledgement, which is what you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're absolutely right. A lot of chasers have been with some self-loathing chubs. And the last thing they want mentioned, the last thing they want touched is their belly. The last thing they want interested in is their stretch marks. And and so they shut the fuck up.
And I find with a lot of those chasers, the reciprocal admiration of their body is also something that they're closed off to. When I appreciate their body, if those guys that have not expressed a pleasure in my body being shared with them do not express pleasure when I take pleasure in their body.
Yeah.
And why are we there then?
Yeah. Well, I actually talked to a very muscular chaser, and he said, if a guy says, wow, you're so handsome, instead of remarking on his chest or biceps or quads, because he's very muscular. He says, if a guy says, wow, you're really handsome, he says, I know he's not open to appreciation of his own body. He says, because that is not the first thing you notice about my body. Like he so stands out.
Right. That if they're actively avoiding.
They're like, oh, your face is so nice. Yeah, he's not, he's not ugly.
Yeah.
But like, that is not the first thing you notice.
Yeah.
And he says, if people gravitate to that first, he says it's a reflection of the time they're going to have in bed and how they feel about their own body.
Michael mentioned something in the prelude to this episode.
Yeah.
That I am curious. Are you going to?
Oh yeah, I can.
Because I just thought that was an interesting.
Yeah. So
discussion.
my weight has fluctuated. I think I would say the best way to put it is frequently over the last 15 years, probably with the variance of about 40 pounds. So my kind of standardized base weight is 190, and then I might get up to 220, or I might go down to 180. It's kind of always in that range. And I would say maybe one or two times in my life where I've been thin enough that you can start to see abs. Not that I really had abs at any point, because I don't think I ever really did, but getting into that range, looking at my body kind of went from okay, that's just me, to that kind of grosses me out. And it was a very strange experience to have of I'm moving a direction that the world and LA in particular is telling me I should go, and cheers for that. But also it was really, I crossed a threshold into being grossed out.
Similar experience, just to share it. So when I've lost weight, I lose weight from the edges in, right? I lose weight in my hands and feet, and then the arms and lower legs and stuff. And so when the first time I lost a significant amount of weight, I started seeing veins in my hands and feet in a way I had never seen in my life. And it caused panic and revulsion in me.
Interesting.
Revulsion.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's interesting how
because you kind of feel who is that?
Yeah.
What is that?
That's not me. That's not part of my body.
It feels very, it just felt very what am I looking at? I'm so unfamiliar with.
Well, and I think you've hit it. I think it has so much to do with identity. There's a name for it. I can't remember what it is in psychology, where basically you identify with a particular image. And those moments when you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I look like this, is you've been dealing with the image in your head rather than the image in the mirror.
Yeah.
Or you suddenly see yourself in a photograph and it's so different than what you've been focused on in the mirror, because you can do that in a mirror. I think because it's so much bound up with identity, I've heard, how many times have you heard this from fat people? It's I'm going to lose weight, but don't worry, I'm never going to be thin. And they're not saying don't worry, don't panic. They're saying I would never want that, because it's an identity thing. They wouldn't know who they were if they were thin.
Yeah. I have made that statement before. I think for me, it was more of just sort of a statement of acceptance that I don't think my body can ever get to the point that you might be imagining.
Right. But if I said, hey, Don, there is this magical trouble-free solution that would let you weigh, 200 pounds, I don't think you'd go for it, because that isn't the body that you identify with.
I think it would be interesting to propose that with also, and no loose skin.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
I think there's a lot of people just the whole.
Well, my hypothesis is that it has to do with how one conceives of oneself, and at a certain point, you just think, no, that's not me.
Well, it's the X-Men question. You know, Rogue, you have the option to take this pill and make all of your evil superpowers go away. Do you take it or not? Do you, if you could take a
Storm
pill
comes
and
in
not
and
be
says-
gay anymore?
Right.
You know, like people have been asked that question as long as there's been another.
Well, but the question always gets at identity. Like being gay is so a part of my identity, and that's why I wouldn't take the pill. Like, why would I not want to be gay? You know,
But
it's
I
a
don't-
part of my identity.
I find it somewhat reassuring to hear both Dan and Michael talk about their own insecurities standing in front of the objects of their affection, right?
Oh yeah.
I find it like until you say it out loud, I find it very hard to imagine that that's the case. So,
and I think a lot of chubs do.
yeah,
I really, and I believe me, there is no worse time I've ever had in bed with a guy than when I just felt not even objectified, just sort of like I was really paying attention to his body and he was just there. Like there was no reciprocation. And I don't mean reciprocation like an act. Like I don't mean like, oh, he didn't go down on me. I mean like
being present.
And present in his body.
Yeah.
And therefore present to my body.
Yeah.
You know?
100%. So do you find it difficult to imagine standing in front of a fat man and do you find it hard to imagine that the fat man is also experiencing that discomfort?
No. I expect it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I expect it.
Yeah.
In fact, I think it's part of my job to move past that if that's the problem.
Okay.
Like to help that along. Because neither of us is going to have a good time if that stays in place.
Yeah.
I think also, I don't know, there is like chubs to be mindful of chasers' insecurities. I think especially because there is the thing of, you know, because they're not attracted to their own bodies and, you know, you are the most beautiful thing in the world to them, that they feel unworthy. And to make
That
sure
is very common.
That happens.
to make sure that they feel worthy. Everyone's worthy.
Everyone's
Have a
worthy
good
of-
time.
As I say to my two cats who are always warring with each other, everybody gets pets.
I think that's the episode.
Everybody gets pets.
That's right. Your chaser needs scritches.
He needs scritches.
Oh, chase your scritches.
All right.
Do we have a tip for this one or is it the next
Yes, I think this is
one? The new Chub event in Boston.
yes. So Boston has been promoting a new event.
How do I not know?
Belly
about this?
is the name of the event.
Belly at Jacques Cabaret.
Yes. The inaugural Belly party is June 6th at 8 p.m. at Jacques Cabaret. You can follow updates about the event. They're at the Belly Party on Instagram. Maybe they're on TikTok. I don't know. I'm cringe and I'm not on TikTok.
God.
I
I don't got enough riz to be on TikTok.
You're not in this TikTokery.
in my 20s, I was a Massachusetts boy and spent a lot of time in the chub chaser scene in Boston. And oh my goodness, were there some pretty people
Oh, nice.
on both sides of the fence in Boston. So
How do you like these apples?
yeah.
It's wicked fun.
I used to work in Boston. I'm trying to figure out. My hotel was across the street from this place.
Nice.
The hotel I used to stayed at.
And can be again. Mike.
Yeah, and it could be again. Look, they have Belly is going on. So check it out. Support local fat. Support local fat. Just do it.
Oh,
You need
Don,
to
get
do
us
the
out
more
of
you
this.
know.
All right. We have a bit today. So since we were talking about multi-size pairings, I thought we might take a little wander into the world of tropes. In entertainment, a trope is a sort of an arrangement you see so often that it just becomes sort of a standard expectation.
Or a stereotype.
Or stereotype. And so sometimes it's amazing how common they can be, how ubiquitous they can be, that we can just stop thinking about them, right? So what I'm going to do here is I've got some groups of tropes, right? I'm going to tell you what the partners are, who the pairings are, and from the pairings you're going to try and figure out which trope these pairings are from.
Okay.
The first one should be kind of obvious, so I'll use this one as an example. Okay, what pairing trope am I giving you examples of? Timon and Pumbaa, Jay and Silent Bob,
Yeah,
Fat
I already
guy,
have it.
thin guy.
Fat guy, thin guy.
Fat thin guy. Okay.
Abbott and Costello.
All right.
Yeah.
And so the way I've tried to arrange these is sort of like the most obscure, but I think you'll know it down to the final one will be like, holy crap, if you don't know it with this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So here we go. What we're going to do is you buzz in when you think you know what the pairing is. The first one will always seem obvious, but you'll need at least two to figure it out. I promise you that. Okay. You get one guess when you buzz in. All right. Ready? Master and Blaster, a.k.a. Master Blaster.
I don't know that.
Asterix and Obelix.
Okay. We're getting warmer.
Inigo Montoya and Fezzik.
Yeah.
Last but not least, Palpatine and Darth Vader.
A trope.
Oh, wait.
Dan?
Let me try this. Is it the smart, smaller guy and the oafish fat guy?
No. But you've...
Is it the talkative one and the silent one?
You've actually come pretty close. No.
Okay.
All right, this one's a little harder. It's tall guy, short guy.
Oh,
This pairing.
just tall, short. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Asterix and Obelix, or it's small guy and big guy. So it's like Palpatine and Darth Vader, the shriveled old man and the towering.
You're right.
I thought we did. I thought we did that with Laurel and Hardy and Abbott and Costello. I thought that was the same trope.
Well, that was purely fat and thin.
Oh,
This
just
one
fat and
is-
thin,
yeah.
tall and short. Okay,
Tall
got
and
it.
short.
Yeah,
Okay. Our next one. Santana and Brittany,
What?
Tucker and Dale.
I have no idea who that is.
Oh, okay. I think I know where we. Buzz.
We got a buzz from Michael.
The smart one and the dumb one.
Smart one and the dumb one.
Ha.
Yeah, it's the jerk smarty and the nice dummy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Who else? I haven't heard of any of these people.
So Santana and Brittany are the lesbian couple from Glee.
Yeah. I don't know how I knew that.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought you literally meant the musicians.
Nope.
I got it on the Tucker and Dale one.
Yeah, Tucker and
Who
Dale.
is Tucker and Dale?
Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
It's a movie with Alan Tudyk and
It's actually a brilliant horror comedy.
Okay.
It's one of the best ones.
And who else is on the list?
Abbott and Costello and Pinky and the Brain.
Pinky and the Brain.
Okay.
Okay, I know Pinky and the Brain.
Okay. And our last one for the day. Don Quixote
Ha.
and Sancho Panza. Fred Flintstone and Barney.
Oh.
Xena and Gabrielle. Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock.
Buzz.
Oh, we got our buzz over here.
Well, I actually on the last one I know I'm wrong now, but my guess was the hero and the sidekick.
It's part of it.
Warrior thinker or warrior practical.
I'm going to give it to you. It's
fantasy
pretty
practical,
close.
Fantasy
It's
practical.
rude hero, nice sidekick.
Rude.
Yeah. So it's, or the socially inept. So Don Quixote, Sancho Panza. Sancho Panza is the one who has to smooth over everything.
Yeah, that's true.
Fred Flintstone, kind of rude, coarse. Barney is the nice guy.
Yeah.
Xena, she will kill you.
Warrior.
Gabrielle wants
Okay.
to talk it out.
Okay.
Kirk and Spock.
Yeah.
So it's funny when I was going through all of these, I realized like how much overlap there is between these. But when you kind of look at them, they are distinct in their own sense. So,
Yeah, and it's about opposite pairings.
yeah. It's always about opposite pairings that bring greater grace to the two when put together.
Interesting, yeah.
How good of a story could you tell if all of the characters were different people but were exactly the same?
What?
Like they're different persons, but they all act and behave and think exactly alike. I'm just curious, like, could you get dramatic?
Can't tell you
tension
how
out of
many
that?
bad scripts I've read where that's absolutely the case.
It was just the writer's voice.
yeah, it's just the writer saying
Yeah.
the same voice with different masks on.
Yeah.
People have accused George Bernard Shaw of doing that. That he has characters that are merely, points of view.
Yeah.
But there are different points of view.
They
aren't
are different points of view.
Okay, well, that's
So,
something.
dear listener, do you have a point of view that you'd like to share with us? Trevor, where can they do that?
Well, we're on Twitter and Instagram as at Big Fat Gay Pod. We're on Facebook as the Big Fat Gay Podcast. Leave us 5 stars there. Leave us 5 stars on your preferred podcast platform. Leave us a review too. We love those.
Yeah.
Support us on Patreon at patreon.com/BigFatGayPod. See the articles we talked about at www.bigfatgaypod.com.
I think, by the way, Dan won the bit. Did Trevor get any of those?
No, because I didn't get to buzz in.
Oh. We need some applause.
You didn't get to buzz in?
Well, because I didn't know any of the things.
Okay, for God's sakes, guys, we're
Well,
one
now-
sentence away from the end.
How you do? Okay, take us out.
Oh, right.
Pull the ripcord.
Oh my God.
Maybe you can't think of what to end the episode on.
So watch out.
Goodbye.